I'm Helen Fallding. I'm the manager of the Center for Human Rights Research at the University of Manitoba, but more importantly for tonight, I'm a former Yukoner. I lived here from 1980 to about 1993 on and off. And I'm talking about my experience here starting the Yukon's first gay organization. It's sort of coming full circle because when I first came to the territory, there was nothing organized in terms of gay, lesbian, queer activities at all, so we had to build that from scratch. And by the time I left, there was a little bit going on, but I would say 99% of queer people were deeply, deeply closeted. So it's really fantastic to come back and see that there's an active, vibrant, out community here, and that for the most part within Whitehorse, people seem to be telling me that their lives are pretty comfortable. I think that's not necessarily true in the smaller communities though, so there's still work to be done. Mm-hmm. There's an organization called Queer Yukon, and it just incorporated as a society, which will give it a little better organizational structure. They can have a bank account, they can do things formally as a group. When we started Yukon Gays and Lesbians back in the late 1980s, we had it explicitly in our constitution that we would stand up for the human rights of other groups that were oppressed. And our vision at that time was that we wanted all the people in the territory who were having a tough time to band together, and that we would then be the majority, and that we could move forward together. And in practice, my partner and I at the time did things like we organized a solidarity campaign around land claims. There was a lot of opposition to land claim settlements. So we took out a full page ad in the paper and collected a couple of hundred signatures of people saying, we recognize that this is, that we are on Indigenous land. We recognize that the way forward is through settling land claims, and to have non-Indigenous Yukoners support that. And I think that the two-spirited people will be the ones who are leading the way in terms of helping bring gay communities, queer communities, and Indigenous communities together. But I think we always need to remember that if you're not under attack yourself, somebody else is, and you need to be standing with them. Mm-hmm. People of color, Indigenous people, people with disabilities, queer people, in fact women. If all of those groups come together, then together we are the majority. Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's great when people who aren't queer come out to Pride events and they swell the number of people in the streets, and we know that we're not alone. We know that people have our back. I think the issue when I left in 1992 was that my partner and I felt like nobody had our back, and that we were targets and we were pretty alone. Yeah, I think there's probably never been a better time in Canada, and I hope that we don't take that for granted, because one of the things that we learn about rights is that they don't always move forward. Sometimes they move backwards. You can see that happening in the States. And when we have some freedom, we need to institutionalize some of those freedoms, make sure that human rights protections are really clear and really solid and can't be overturned if society wants to go backwards or politicians want to drag us backwards. Yeah, written into law and policy, in court decisions, all those kinds of things that make it harder to just have them evaporate. And if anyone tries to take us backwards, tries to change those laws, that we really mobilize and take whatever risks are necessary just to stand up and say we're not going backwards.
Great.